Hello and welcome to Art and Self. I'm Cindy Ingram, your host and the founder of Art Class Curator, the Curated Connections Library, and the Art and Self Connection Circle. This is a podcast where we experience the range and depth of what it means to be human, seen through our connections and conversations about works of art. These art conversations are here to show you that art is here for you as a catalyst, a challenger, a coach, and a comfort. Before we get started, take a moment to fill up your lungs with a deep breath. Connect with your body and your mind and your spirit, and get ready to discover what art has to show you. Hello, and welcome back to Art and Self with Cindy Ingram. And today I have a really special interview with Angie Stegall. And I have to tell you, I am feeling a little bit vulnerable putting this one out into the world, not because it's not good, because Angie is brilliant. She said so many things that almost just knocked me out of my seat during this interview, to the point where I got almost a little bit flustered. I didn't know exactly how to respond, because it was just one of those things where someone says something so powerful and so meaningful that you just kind of want to go run away and think about it for the next 5 hours. Just the one thing she said. And then she did that multiple times. And so it really triggered that sense of sublime in me, that sense of wonder, that sense of like deep admiration for the universe and the expansiveness of the world. And I really did feel like I'm an idiot and Angie is brilliant. So I probably should just not say that, because, we're our own worst critics, but being in Angie's presence is always such a powerful experience. So I'm really grateful that you get to have that opportunity today. And also, such a wonderful thing happened to solidify what we were talking about when you get to the part where it started storming at my house, right at the exact right moment for it to start storming. It was really perfect for what we were talking about. So anyway, without further ado, here is my talk with Angie Stegall. All right, today on the podcast, I have Angie Stegall here with me. Welcome, Angie.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I am really excited to have you on, because I got to participate in your amazing program last year. Well, no, it was this year. And it was such a powerful experience for me. So I can't wait to talk more about that. But before we get started, can you tell our listeners more about you and your work?
Yeah. So I am an executive life coach and wayfinder. I love nature-based coaching and helping people discover themselves by being outside. There's a real power in connecting with nature that allows you to then connect with yourself, your breath, and your body, and then connect enough to hear all those little tiny whispery inner thoughts that, in normal life, you don't hear, because we're all going 150,000 miles an hour.
Indeed. Awesome. So we'll talk about more about your work as we go, but we're going to go ahead and pick our artwork. So I'm going to show you 4 different artworks. And don't pay too much attention to titles, because I'm giving the titles so the listeners will know what they are, but really look at it and allow yourself to be intrigued and feel into it rather than sort of think into it. Just whatever one really captivates you. So this is the first time. So in the form for scheduling the podcast, I ask if you have any favorite artists, and no one ever puts anything in there. Sometimes they do, but you had some. And I was like, oh, great. So I had a good starting place. So your first one is actually one that you had put on your list. This is The Forest Has Eyes by Bev Doolittle. And the next one is, I couldn't find a title, but the artist is named Vasilis Avramidis, Greek name, so I'm sure I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. And we have Nights by Natalie Wadlington and Shenju's Poet on a Mountaintop. Any of those really calling to you?
Oh boy, goodness. I have a huge affinity for the Japanese art. That one is lovely. And I love Bev Doolittle's everything to do with horses. But I have to say, the one that's labeled number 5.
Okay. Our second choice.
The second choice there's something about that one. Yeah. I don't even know that I understand the painting, but there is something about that one that, that I'm a big yes for.
Awesome. Oh, good. I'm glad you chose this one because it's so different. And I've never spent any time. I've spent time with some of the other ones, but I have not with this one. So I don't know what's going on either. So we're going to figure it out together.
Awesome. Yeah.
Wonderful. So because I couldn't find a title for this one, we will link it in the show notes. Don't look at the artwork while you're driving. But this is from an exhibit called Caretakers. And so I'll tell you for the listeners, the only place that I found this image was embedded in a My Modern Met post. And so it's like 3/4 of the way down. So we'll put instructions on which exact image this in the show notes. So this one's a little trickier one. I can't link to exactly the artwork. So, all right. So before we start interpreting it, how about we start with a description? You want to start? Let us know what's happening.
Yeah, this is funny. I use oracle cards with my clients sometimes, and because we're on Zoom, I end up describing the card to them. So that's exactly what I'll do here. This, is it a painting, an illustration?
I believe it's a painting. Yes.
A painting. Okay. So this painting, the first thing that I see is there are two people. There appears to be man or a male figure in the top left. He's kind of bending his head down. He almost looks like he's dressed in furs. And then the woman is slightly lower than him, and she's on the right side of the painting. She almost looks like she has a fur hat on and also some kind of a coat. There appear to be more hands than there are people.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah. He looks like he has 3 hands, one up toward his head where he's holding a staff or a tree trunk. And then both of his hands are down in front of him. Oh, and there's also a face down there, cradled in his hands, between his hands. And the woman appears to be looking down at whatever that face is that he is holding, cradling, or maybe doing something else too. I'm not sure yet. There's a light. The two figures are fairly dark. Gray, green, blue, black are the colors of the figures. But then there's this bright light right in the center of them. And there's, again, that face that I can't quite make out. And some kind of structures almost superimposed over top of that. And then there's the same with the woman who's looking at this face cradled between the man's hands. And she has some kind of a structure, kind of right where her heart would be.
Yeah.
Up above them, there appear to be some cliffs and some trees. And her hair almost looks like part of the cliffs and trees. And the cliffs of trees almost make up the man's back. And then down below, it's like the earth is hanging or dissolving below them, like mosses or grasses that hang off the cliff. And you would, if it was really wet, it would be water coming off. And then there are blank spots in the painting that are just white, and there's nothing in them. Are they clouds? Is it vapor? Is it representative of something else? I don't really know. And then the very, very background is a very light, periwinkle blue, very light.
You are an excellent describer. I was like, I'm just watching. I'm like, this is so good. I don't think I have to say anything.
Oh, and there's a big pink circle right underneath the man's face, almost like a moon. Yeah. Pink circle.
Let me add. So there's a few things that I noticed. The light you were talking about, I feel like it's really concentrated right in front of her hand.
Ooh,
like it's almost coming from her palm. And then to me, it seems like the people are the mountains in the ground.
Yeah.
So her body almost looks more like it's kind of bluish clouds, and then he's more green. But it makes me think of like Moana at the end, when the Teika turns into the Tifiti.
I haven't seen
It's all green.
Moana.
Oh my gosh. Moana. So good. Okay. But anyway, the island is like, it's a person. Basically, she's all green flowers. And so she's the kind of like a Mother Earth type of figure.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So these people are part of the landscape. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Her hair, kind of the way it hangs, matches the bottom of the painting where it's like the bottom of the earth is falling out and her hair looks just like that.
So what part of the painting are you drawn to the most? What do you want to start with?
I think I first noticed kind of the pine trees and the cliffs at the top. And that really spoke to me. But then as I really started looking at it, the natural elements of the firs and the two structures that are almost where their hearts are, I was like, that seems very representative of an inner world or something like that.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed the location of the hearts either, but that's such a powerful observation.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is your interpretation of sort of what this painting is about?
First, I almost interpreted it as something bad happening, especially with whatever this figure is that these two people are huddled around. But the more I look at it, the more it seems to me like almost like she has a mage light in her hand and she's shining it on this figure that the man is cradling, and he's pouring something into the mouth of whatever this figure is, like sustenance, saving, nurturing.
Yeah. And I hadn't even noticed that face until you were doing your description. I saw it right at the same time you saw. We were talking about the hands, and I was like, wait, there's a face. And you're like, there's a face.
There's a face there.
Yeah. And yeah, it does. It feels very intimate and it feels very loving to me.
Yeah.
Like, they're like two parents, like and their new baby. They're just kind of all of their attention is down in this one area.
Yeah. Their faces are very soft and benevolent looking to me. Yeah. And he's definitely cradling. There's definitely holding going on in this painting.
So what do you think that face is representing?
It reminds me a little bit of shepherds when they are out caring for their flock. And when young ones are born and they need extra help and attention or extra warmth or extra nourishment, because they're so surrounded by nature, and the only structures in this are almost, they're outside of them, but inside of them.
Yeah. And he's got that, well, if that is his hand, that third hand is holding some sort of staff. It's got, so that kind of has shepherd vibes too.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, it does.
So the face's mouth is open.
Yeah.
And then we see like a tongue. So right when you said shepherd, I could just like hear the sound of like a baby lamb.
A lamb or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
A goat.
Totally can see that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think it's almost because this being that is between them reminds me a little bit of a goat. He's got fur. His eye is very large. His mouth is open. He almost looks like he has a horn. So there's something animalistic, animal representative.
Yeah.
About the figure between them.
Yeah. At first I was seeing it as like a hairy fish because it's got this circle and then it's got this like little like tornado, inverted tornado shape kind of coming from it. And I thought that was his tail. But then as you were talking, I started to see like the way the fur kind of comes down and then it goes down to her hand. So I could see, there's the rest of the body of this creature.
Yeah.
It's going to the right instead of up.
Yeah.
He's morphed out of it being a hairy fish.
Dude, not a hairy fish anymore. With a tornado coming off his head.
Okay. So you mentioned these structures being maybe internal worlds. Can you talk a little bit more about what you mean by that?
So I am a big fan and I am an IFS, internal family systems informed coach. I use internal family systems for myself and with my clients. And the idea of internal family systems is we have all these different parts of us. I will often tell my clients that the whole point of my work is to help them walk themselves home to their parts, home to their inner world, home to themselves, where they can find that anytime, no matter where they are. And seeing these little structures, they're so modern looking. And it immediately I thought, there's their home. That's where that's where their heart lives. See the little rooms and the little places and the lights. And it looked like she has like almost like a drawer and a little plant in her structure. And it reminds me of Carolyn Mace's work around finding all the rooms in your house and going deeper and deeper into the basement of yourself and discovering more and more about yourself. That's what immediately came to mind when I saw the people with these home-like structures.
Oh, I love that. I really do. Because when I first looked at this, I was like, okay, I go into, I have a set of criteria that I'm looking for when I'm picking art. And one of them is that there's some sort of meaning or message that you can find. It's just if you're putting up a bunch of circles, and maybe you could, but like it's a little bit harder. So, but also that it's complex and there's multiple meanings available to it. So when I looked at this, I was like, okay, well, it's clearly, obviously, because I have my expert opinion, this is about the relationship of nature, man and nature and their sort of symbiotic relationship. But then I love putting art in front of people because immediately you see everybody is looking at something totally different. And now as you're talking, I'm like, oh yeah, I see all of that. And it's so beautiful. And it's exciting to me to be able to find those, to see how everyone looks at art in a different way. It's really cool.
Yeah. So that reminds me a little bit. I'm a certified Martha Beck Wayfinder life coach. And one of the things that we do is this dream analysis. And we don't look up what each of the parts of the dreams mean. The pieces and parts of your dreams mean something individual to you. So it completely makes sense to me that you would look at a piece of art and interpret it in a way that is all context in your own brain.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so what you were saying about finding home within yourself was really beautiful to me and profound. And then as I was looking at the painting while you were saying that, I thought it was really interesting that these figures are natural. They're part of the landscape. They've got the fur and the grass and the clouds and everything. But then the inside of them is this sort of geometrical, grid, boxy, more industrial, sterile looking. What do you think is happening there with the idea of the home within yourself, but that contrast of nature versus whatever that is, industrialization or man-made or whatever?
It strikes me that we are, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but we are not just part of the world. We are of the world. So imagine this man is this cliff. He's this mountain. Within mountains, there are caverns. There's water. There are animals and bugs and minerals. And inside the mountain, those are homes for those different things. Then you take a man, and inside of him, there are all different sorts of things too. He's got various organs and blood cells and mitochondria. But then he also has a really rich inner world that he may or may not have examined. And the most wonderful thing is to be at home with yourself so that yourself is your home. And that is, in my world, very natural.
Yeah.
To be part of nature and to be of nature.
Oh, I love it. You're so good. I was like, I knew Angie would be really good at this.
Yeah, this is so fun.
based on our forest bathing, which we will talk about because I rave about it all the time in my head and to other people too. And I'm always just like, man, that forest bathing. Okay.
Something else.
We'll get there. We're just teasing it right now. So sorry. That's my problem is when someone's speaking really eloquently about art, I'm just like, oh, that's amazing. And then I just get lost in it. And now I'm just like, wait, what are we doing?
What are we doing here? I think that's
I love it. I love it. Okay. Yeah, I just started to, as you were talking about everything in the mountain and everything in a person, I just started to realize the expansiveness of our lives and like the infinity of who we are and how every single person is so big and complex and expansive, and those inner worlds are so huge. And then you multiply that by the, billion, however many people are on the planet, and then all of the planet and all of its different life, and then the whole universe. And I was like, oh.
You can lose your mind laying under the stars, thinking about yourself, and then thinking about where you are, and then thinking about all that's around you, and then doing exactly what you did, going community, city, state, continent, worlds, up to the heavens, up through the galaxies. And just the infinity of it is at once very sobering and completely breathtaking.
Yeah.
It is like there are almost no words for the majesty of like how little we are and how vast the potential of everything is.
Yeah. I always it's really interesting. I hear when people talk about this, some people will say, oh, I feel so small. And then I never get that feeling. It's always this feeling of like, I almost feel bigger. I almost feel like, I guess because you realize I realize how much of a part of everything I am, like how all of my cells in my body were once in stars, and how, I have dinosaurs. I'm sure a cell from a dinosaur. And it's all of a sudden like, oh, I am one with the whole universe. Yeah.
With everything. And that leads me right back to my heart that if I am stardust, if I was stardust, if I am dinosaurs, if I was dinosaur, if I was rain, if I am, if I was you, am you. If I am you, we are one person. And what I do to you, I do to myself.
Oh,
yes.
Poetry. Oh,
yeah.
And it's bringing it back to the painting. Thinking about it through that lens of we are one. We have two figures who are so lovingly caring for new life, and so it's like they could be the parents, but then they're continuing and passing this along to this new generation. And I just noticed there's another little structure that is kind of separate from the man's structure. This little part where there's a little separated part. That could be the part of the little creature.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more on top of him, but.
Yeah. But if you look down, so now I'm starting to think that, that little part, there's also, that could be right over his heart, that little box.
Yeah.
And I'm almost thinking that the upper hand on the left-hand side, holding the staff or the tree, belongs to the man. A more visible hand right below it belongs to the little creature.
Oh.
And he's almost they're supporting him, but he's pouring his own sustenance into his mouth. Because it looks furry. The more I look at it, the more I'm like, but the little hand is furry.
Oh, interesting.
Just like the little creature.
Yeah. So what do you make of the light that it looks like the woman is holding in her left hand, or I don't know if she's holding, but it's just immediately in front of her hand? What do you think that light's about?
This has no bearing on religion. But that saying, I am the way and the truth and the life, I am the way, the truth and the light. She's just projecting, and it really does look like it's coming from her palm. So I'm big into science fiction fantasy, and, I would absolutely die to be able to create a mage like my hand like that in the dark.
That'd be so cool.
I would love to be able to talk to animals and do I want all the powers. It almost feels like she's not just projecting light, but she's projecting life and warmth toward this creature that is in need.
Yeah. Yeah, I was feeling that warmth too.
Because it's so concentrated. And so what it makes me think of is, when I turn on my desk light, my cats like to come get underneath it and curl up and sleep because it's hot, and they're like, and just that concentrated warmth of the light coming out of her hand that's what it made me feel when I looked at it.
I love it. So I'm kind of going back to something we were already talking about because it just popped in my head again. But you were talking about being under the stars and, pondering the infinity of the universe. I'm really seeing that in the sky and in the bottom part of the painting. The fact that it has these blank white shapes that are reminiscent of clouds, and it could be reflections of the clouds, but then they also go up into the main part of the painting too. So they're not fully reflections. It could be fog, but that blankness too it's calling to me, and that sense of the unknown and that there's all this around us, but still there's all this like unknown around us, but still we are whole and we are turning inward and we're like intimate within our own selves. When, am I making sense? I feel like.
Yeah. It's almost like there's this whole thing happening in kind of this middle of the painting. There's unknown other thing that the painting literally just bleeds out.
Yeah.
Not like blood, but the white just kind of filters out of the edges of the painting. Unfinished, unknown, unseen.
It reminds me of Japanese art too. In the folding panels that they did, they would have this composition that would not make sense, and they would have these cloud foggy shapes that would go in and out, and they wouldn't necessarily make sense either in terms of space. And so he's using a lot of these same elements from Japanese folding screens.
Interesting.
I think it's really interesting too.
Like a Cormando screen?
I don't know what they're called.
I have a Cormando screen, which is why I was asking. It has 4 panels that are, one side is black lacquer with birds and trees and rocks, flowers. The other side is gold with almost the same kind of birds and things on the other side.
There's one in particular that I used to teach at a job I had. It was in the curriculum, and it had the 4 seasons, but there was a lot of like nature and cranes and, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I'll link to that so people can see that. I tried to find it on my computer as we were talking just now, but I'm searching for all sorts of different things and I'm not finding it. So I'm sure it's somewhere.
The thing that I'm deeply pondering in this whole piece is that little pink circle.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit with anything else. It's just there. Like, why is it there? What's the purpose of the pink circle?
Yeah, I keep landing on that too. And I'm like, we're going to have to get to that. I don't know what it means.
I don't know what it means either.
I don't know why it's not white. Like if it was white, then I would think, oh, it's just, the same as the clouds, but it's not. I mean, it's pink, and the other shapes are really more organic and bubbly and like flowy. And this is just a perfect circle.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's almost there to remind me that this is a painting. It's just like, oh, this isn't real.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very confusing. Do you have any theories?
I want to have theories, but I don't.
Yeah. So it's right in front of his face, between the two hands. So it maybe would be on his shoulder. About. That doesn't feel like it has any sort of significance.
Like, it almost makes me, when I think about this is what comes to me, I don't know why, that the artist drawing this, it's like, this, this could feel like heavy subject matter. It's dark, and their faces are, benevolent, but fairly serious. And then just because lights can be really absurd, just going to paint a little pink circle right here. Like a little playful, a little absurd, a little silly, a little ridiculous, a little confusing. Take that.
Yeah. There you go. And I also noticed too, while you were talking, that in the structures of, the structures in the heart area of the two figures, there is a little bit of pink in there. And so if there was no pink on the left side of the painting, it might not be balanced. There could have been some sort of moment of, this is not balanced. How can I add this balance into the left side of the picture? And then maybe it could have just been that,
Yeah.
Because then you can, I look at the pink circle and then I go back. And when I go back, I look at the light, the circular part of the light. So it's almost like that. That's the only other really circle in the painting is that circle of light.
Yeah.
So my eyes kind of bouncing between the two.
I don't know if it's normal to kind of start from the left side and then move down to the right side when looking at a painting. I don't think so. But that pink dot makes me look to the upper left side, and then my eyes start to kind of scan down the rest of the painting.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a left to right thing, but artists are very aware of where they're drawing your attention and then how your eye moves through. They don't want to send your eye off the painting. They want to keep it in. So you'll see lines that kind of draw your eye in and around and back into the action. And so that could have that purpose as well. If you follow the lines of this painting, they do sort of guide you around. If you start at that pink dot, you can kind of go down. And then even like the sky, how it kind of, her hair has like a ponytail or something in it. And there's like a little hook. Like that kind of brings you back into this part that's emphasized. Like these clouds down here point up to this area that's emphasized. Like he's really drawing our eye back to that center area in a lot of ways. Yeah. The lines and the shapes and all of that. This would be a good one. We do have a lot of teachers that listen. This would be a good one to teach emphasis. You need a good example to teach emphasis. Here you go.
Here you go.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about the forest bathing. Because it's in here. We can see, like you're clearly very good at noticing little details. And I'm just like, oh, you have a lot of practice with this. Because, so for the listeners, I participated in Angie's Be Wilder backpacking and wayfinding experience back in April. And I think it was April. And it was a couple days where we went out into the forest in Brevard, North Carolina, which is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. I did not know how beautiful it was going to be, but it was breathtaking. And we did we were supposed to spend a few nights out camping, backpacking, but then it ended up being very cold and snowy and stuff. So I thought, I always camped a lot when I was a kid. So I thought, hey, I want to see if I could still like this. Not sure I came away thinking backpacking is my thing.
It was very cool.
It was very cool. Every time I have a sound machine app to play white noise, and there's one that's like ice on a tent. Like it's actually that sound. And I played it and I was like, I was like immediately like transported back.
Taken back. And then having PTSD.
But anyway, like the highlight for me of that experience was participating in your forest bathing. So can you tell us what that is?
Yeah. So forest bathing is also known as forest therapy or Shinrin Yoku. That is my very American pronunciation of a Japanese word. Forest bathing was started in the 1980s in Japan due to a culture of overwork. And the Ministry of Health in Japan was concerned with how stressed out people were. So they pulled together a bunch of studies and learned that spending time in nature has all these amazing benefits for human beings, and it's practically free. You can just go outside. So forest therapy became an adaptation or was inspired by forest bathing and Shinrin Yoku. And the whole idea is to get your body outside and experience nature deeply, profoundly over a long period of time. 30 minutes, 2 hours, 6 hours, 3 days, using all of your senses. So you're looking at things, you're smelling things, you're tasting things, you're feeling things, hearing things. And it is a really beautiful practice in being present to what is happening around you and noticing great big what's happening all around you, and then looking in one place, a little 2-inch square, and noticing what's happening right there in front of you. And the practice has beautiful benefits for your body. You know, it lowers your heart rate. It lowers your respiratory rate. It lowers your blood pressure. It helps you calm down. It has the weirdest effect of making you a nicer person. There's benevolence that happens when you are out really practicing forest therapy. And we say in forest therapy that I am the guide and the forest is the therapist.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was so neat for me because you're leading us through all these exercises. So one was, paying attention to the sounds or whatever. So we would walk really slowly and we're listening at the rustling of the trees and the birds, and we're listening, all the different sounds. And then, one was look at things that are moving. And so we're walking and we're noticing all the movement and that experience that we were talking about of laying under the stars and feeling your infinity. Like I experienced that many times in that process because I was like, oh, we're moving. And I was like, I'm moving. And these trees are swaying. The wind is blowing. But like the planet is moving. It's spinning. It's going around. The sun is going around something in the Milky Way. The Milky Way is moving around something in the, it was just like, oh, there's movement, imperceptible. So it was really fascinating to be able to really hyper focus on different senses and different experiences. And then there was the one with, make a little frame with sticks and just on the ground and just look at that one area. I was like, we're doing art interpretation here. This whole thing is exactly what I do in front of art. The whole thing. And I was like, oh, this is exactly what I do. I tell people to sit in front of a painting for an hour and then, see what happens. And it was just really neat to see this energies in our work. I left so rejuvenated from just that. I don't know how long we were out there, but it was just really magical experience.
The practice of presence and deep fascination, like really looking, the more you look, the more you see. The more you listen, the more you hear. The more you taste, the more you taste. It makes your whole life richer, more complex in a good way, right? Not like I have 37 chargers and 52 pieces of technology. Kill me now. The layers of richness, especially in the natural world or in art or in writing, there's something so like I'm hungry for it. And I think a lot of us are hungry for that presence and the ability to get into deep fascination.
Yeah.
And being able to lead people into that through art or words or nature or whatever, creating is such a gift that is needed, I think, in modern society.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's kind of cliche at this point that we talk about how fast everything's moving, images that go past our screen. But even it makes me think of like TikTok or something where it's like, I can't handle TikTok because it's too fast. Like, it's just, they're going to give me this idea and it's a profound idea. But then 5 seconds later, I'm like thrown into someone else's idea. And then it's just like one after another. And I'm just like, by the end of it, I'm just all jumbled up because and now there's thunder. I don't know if y'all can hear that. I'm like, oh,
I heard that.
I love it.
Oh my gosh. What are you?
I love thunder. I have to open my window. It's not open right now. Sorry, I got distracted by the thunder. See, we were talking about the sounds of nature. And
I know. And
hello.
nature said, I will bring you right back into the present, right? You got overstimulated. And I'm totally serious about this.
Yeah.
You got overstimulated thinking about TikTok and all those 15-second video clips or 30 seconds, however, I'm not on TikTok, but the speed at which we are delivered content, right?
Yeah.
To consume, it barely tastes it. And then it's in us and it's through us. And your energy started to go like this and get really scattered. And then that thunder happened and you came right back to the moment and you're alive. And that is the gift that nature can bring. And I am serious as a heart attack.
I know.
That
it is 100% true. But that's exactly what just happened.
Awesome. Yeah. It is awesome. When we pay attention, holy cow.
Yeah. It's almost like we planned that, but we didn't. It was just,
we didn't.
It was perfect moment. It's nature.
It's nature showing up and being like, see what I can do.
I love it. So good. Yeah. Okay. Oh,
I'm so glad you presented this work. So compelling to look at because there's so much to see. Every time I look, I see something new.
Is there anything you feel it was left unsaid from our conversation in this artwork? Is there any area that you're kind of curious about and want to dissect more?
Almost other than the light that the woman is holding. And I think I referenced her face once. We maybe talked about her ponytail. We didn't talk much about the woman in this scene.
Yeah, we didn't.
She's much smaller than he is. No, I was going to say she's very beautiful. There's something about her face that is so lovely and well proportioned. Like, bravo to the artist for painting a super nondescript face that is still very lovely and compelling to look at. Does she have a very fancy hat on that is animal furs? I can't really tell. It almost looks like she has a beautiful brocade jacket on. There's something right above the very contemporary, bit that is above her heart. But there's something very beautiful about that pattern on her jacket.
I'm drawn too to the fact that she doesn't have eyes.
Yeah.
Like he has like dark spots where his eyes would be. She doesn't even have that. It's not even
she's got a brow. Yeah. She's got a brow, but that's all she's really got.
But even though she doesn't have eyes, to me, she is looking down at.
She is gazing.
Yeah. She's looking down at the little creature. There's so much like warmth and energy coming from her. And so much complexity too, because if you look, like her clothes to me they're blue and like the rest of it is very green, but it's like this grayish blue and it's very like probably what if I were to have my window open, what the clouds would look like right now, like those sort of storm clouds that move really fast and are constantly swirling in and out of each other. Like there's like a depth and complexity to her that is really intriguing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all that else I would have said about this. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, this artwork it was part of an exhibit called Caretakers. And so the link that I'm going to post I didn't count, but there's at least 6 other images from this series. Caretakers, and they're all fit that exhibit title really well. Like they're caring for nature, they're part of nature, they're doing different, it's this sort of interplay of structures in nature. And so it's beautiful. I invite you to check out the rest of them. And then he has an Instagram page too, which this series is not on his Instagram, but his newest stuff is very, I am assuming it's his newest stuff because it's on his Instagram, but it's a lot darker. So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this was beautiful. I knew like you were just so profound and so, like it was just wonderful. So thank you so much for that today.
Yeah.
Can you share with our listeners how to follow you online? Do you have any events coming up you want to promote, or your book, which I have sitting in front of me? How can they find you?
So angiestegall.com is the website. And then you can look for Angie Stegall or Angie Matson Stegall, Mathan, Stegall on Facebook and LinkedIn. Those are the only two places that I am with any kind of regularity. So yeah, and my book Notes from Nature is available on Amazon.com in paperback or Kindle. Get the paperback because it's a journal too.
Yeah.
Take that thing outside for sit spot time.
Yes, definitely. We'll link to all those places in our show notes. But I definitely want to plug the book because if you are feeling the need to have more nature in your life and you feel like you want that slowness and that grounding that we were talking about in this episode, this book has all of that in here in a very accessible way that's really kind of guides you through everything that you would need to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the doing is often just going outside, but yeah, we want a task sometimes to help us feel like
Sometimes
we're doing something.
it helps our minds, right? Like we need a point and a purpose to not just go sit outside for 30 minutes because that might be a little too much at first.
Yeah.
But yeah, to have some questions to ponder and some exercises
Excellent.
for our brains. Yeah.
Indeed. All right. Well, thank you so much, Angie. This was a delight.
Thank you. I had a great time. This was a great piece of art to talk about. Very rich conversation. Thanks.
Indeed. Thank you so much for listening to Art and Self. And if you loved what you heard, please consider leaving me a rating or a review on iTunes. And share this episode with one friend who you know needs to hear what we talked about today. You will find links to the artworks that we discuss over at the show notes at artandself.com. And you can also join my email list to get notified of all of the new upcoming episodes. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Cindy Needs Art. Thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful week. I'll see you next time.